Conclusion. Now that we have gone through all the 10 commandments and discussed what they are and what they mean and all of that, it is time to answer one final question. Are the 10 commandments still important? This is something that is still talked about and debated some, whether we are supposed to obey them, some or all of them, and today or not. On different occasions, Jesus uses these commandments as a foundation for his teaching, especially over righteousness. There's a difference between the Old Testament teachings, where we can find the 10 commandments, and the New Testament teachings, where Jesus teaches us. The Old Covenant, which includes the 10 commandments, is found over what is known as the Old Testament. It is one that required many sacrifices. However, this Old Covenant promised that another covenant would be established and replace the old one. In Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31, it says, "Behold, the days come, says Jehovah, that I will cut a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah." The Old Covenant was one that was characterized by the internalization of God's laws. Then whenever we compare it to this New Covenant, it emphasizes a personal and transformative relationship with God. We are able to see when this change happened, because in verses like Hebrews chapter 9, verse 15, where it tells us that Jesus Christ is the mediator for this new covenant. The switch of covenants is something that changes some of what it is that we are supposed to be doing. There are some things that are mentioned in the Old Testament under this old law that doesn't apply to the New Testament. Because of this, it shows us that we aren't necessarily supposed to be obeying it. For example, one of the things that was mentioned in the Old Testament and not in the New is the commandment of keep the Sabbath holy. Because of this, it brings up the question, is the Old Testament still important? Well, yes, it is. While we aren't bound to be following their laws, it is something that we're still needing to be studying and learning from. It is just like taking history classes in school. All that stuff that happened in the past that technically has no official bearing on our life. However, just like in history classes in school, there is something that we are supposed to be learning and to be gaining from it. One of the things that we can get and learn more about God's people and the problems that they had faced. Another thing that we can learn from it is simply if we know what happened in the past and the mistakes that happened, we are less likely to repeat them. Just due to these two things, it points to how important history can be, and not only that, but shows that it is something that we are needing to be studying. Through the Old Testament, we can see a lot of people's lives played out in the form of a story for us to be able to read and to learn from it. So while the Old Testament might not seem like it is something that is important to be looking into and to be studying, the Old Testament still had plenty of things that we are needing to be reading into and examining, especially as a Christian. The whole Bible is something that is important to us, and we are needing to be using it as part of our toolbox to help us fight against the devil, sin, and temptations. This concludes our yearly study over the 10 Commandments. We hope that you found something to learn from this and that you got out of this and enjoyed this study.